right, so for this video, we're going to be making some changes to our player controller script. We're mostly just going to be organizing what we have, preparing for a major refactor in order to get ready for a good checkpoint. So the first major thing we want to do is organize our variables. So this player controller script has a lot of different variables that do different things, and they are part of different aspects of it. So some things are a part of every aspect so far. Some things are only part of movement. Some things are a part of jumping. And we just want to organize this to make it easier to access, because right now in Unity, we have a player controller. We're going to end up having a lot more variables here, and having them organized in a way where we can easily access them is just going to make life a lot easier. So the first one we're going to do is we're going to just kind of move some things around. So these first two things are components. All right, so I'm going to write a little comment here just to keep track of things. These are going to be components. Then we're going to need a section for things about movement, values. Then we're going to need things for flags. And I mean, that should probably be due for now. So this variable right here for horizontal move, that's a movement value. That's something that we want to be able to change, or that we have rather for movement. Then we have this movement speed. Seems like a good value to put there. There's a movement value that we can modify. Then we have these three flags. Is facing right, is jumping, is grounded. We can take those and put those here. Then we have transform ground check, ground layer, and ground check radius. These are jump checks, something like that. So, and that works. Except we actually have a feature that makes life a lot easier inside of Unity. Well, we actually have a handy feature that's available to us in Unity, where we can actually group things inside of our components in the inspector by using something called a header. Well, the first thing we need to do is write in the header itself. So using a square bracket, then header, parenthesis, quotation marks. We can give a name to the category we're going to work with. So here I'm just going to use components. And then I need to reorder this so that the public one is first. So public animator, and then private rigid body RB. These are components. Now let's see what that does. So remember, public has to be first. We have this components. This is a little header that we can use to organize our code. So we have components there. Now let's do one for movement values. So I'm going to copy and paste. And I'll call this movement values. Then I'm going to take my public variable and move this up. So it's right there. Then I'm going to go ahead and take this one, make another one for flags. Though none of these are public, so these won't really matter. And then down here we have this ground check, layer check, and ground check radius. I actually think these might really belong up with components. So I'm going to take these and move these up here. And then jump check. This really doesn't jump check. This is a movement value. So I'll put this down here as well. So with this reorganizing, we now have different categories in which our stuff belongs in. So I'm going to save this, and only two will show up here. But we have our components category and then our movement values category. Eventually, we're going to be implementing things like jump height and other factors. And so having those kind of categorized here can be really helpful. Now, we actually have been doing some things that aren't really good practice. We shouldn't make these components public. They really should be private. The difference between public and private is, can a component or can something be accessed outside of this class? And in this case, we don't want the animator to be accessed outside this class, but we want to be able to see it in the editor. So we can mark this as private, but then we can put in front of it square brackets and then serialize field. Serialize field, capital F. This keeps it private while still letting it show up in the editor. There we go, no changes, which is what we want. So I'm actually going to take this and copy it. I'm going to change this public value to private, the ground check, and then for the ground layer, same thing. Rigid body, just leave private. We don't need to see that. Now, movement speed, I want to leave this public because we're going to be accessing this in other files eventually. Horizontal move, we want to keep private. Ground check radius, we want to also keep private. Actually, you know what? No, let's go ahead and make this a serialized field instead, because we want this to be seen. I'm going to take this and move this up, actually. Put this under movement speed. There. Because we might need to adjust the ground check radius later on. And we don't want to have to go into the file to change that again. We now have these private but serialized things that we can modify and change within Unity, but can't be accessed by other files. That's just good practice. Now, with our ground check radius, we really know that we want this to be within a certain range. Same with movement speed. We don't want to be able to put in any value. We don't want to put -1 or 0. We know there has to be a minimum. So we can put a slider, a range bar in here to make things a little bit easier for us. To do that, I'm going to go to above my ground check radius, make a new space, square bracket, then range. I'm going to put parentheses, and I need to give it a value of, let's say 0.1f to a max of 1.0f. Now, having this range here means that I should get a little slider bar here. Yeah, so I can give it any sort of range. I can increase the size of it, and you should be able to see right there as I change the size, it does work. Let's say I realize I needed to have it just a little bit bigger for it to work the way I want it to. I can just do that here. Then movement speed, I could create this, set this as a range, but I'm gonna leave this just as a regular value for now though. Then lastly, there's one weird kind of annoying thing here where if you click on your player, it clicks on the sprite, where even if we wanted to move, like it's easy to accidentally move the player sprite, even though the player character is back where it was. We didn't move that. Selection, like when you click on something, is going to show the thing you can select. The player character doesn't actually have anything to select. That's kind of annoying. So we have an easy fix though. Top of our script, above public class player controller mono behavior, square bracket, then selection base. This makes it so whatever this script is attached to, when we click on it, that is what's selected. So now I can select, and it selects the player character and not the artwork. That's just the thing to make life a little bit easier. Now there are a few other things we can kind of do in our Unity script to make life a little bit easier for us, but they don't really apply for right now. So let's go ahead and move on to getting ready for our first checkpoint. So for this checkpoint, what I want you to do is I want you to show your Unity screen. I want you to open up your player controller script, and I want you to slowly scroll down like this in a way where I can see it. So I can see what you have in your script. Right. And I want to be able to for sure see your variables organized. I want to see your script organized where you have things tabbed over and cleaned up. Need be, you can right click, format document, and it will format for you. You may have to change, it may ask you to select something up here, set it to prettier or whatever options there to organize your code for you. So do that before you record the video. and then go into Unity. And then let me see your player controller script as it's set up. Press play, and I want to see the character fall on ground that stays put. Moving left and right with the animation running, triggering. And then jump where it switches back to the idle animation or the running animation, depending how you move. If you wanted to, you could have other platforms here to show yourself jumping, but right now this is all we need for the checkpoint, because in order for this to work, we need to have everything else done. So, yeah, go ahead and do that screen recording and turn it in. Thanks.